My opponent's claim is that K-12 schools in America do not properly educate students. His claims were that the grading system in K-12 emphasizes grades too much. His second claim was that the value of students' education depends on the teacher. And his third secondary claim is that America's schools are counterproductive. For his first claim, he states that bad grades gives students the idea that they cannot reach the career that they want. He gives an example that Quentin Tarantino dropped out of high school and now acts and directs movies. Acting and directing doesn't take as much of an education as it does skill. Most actors and actresses dropped out of school and became successful, but most occupations require an education. This just shows Tarantino was lucky enough to not have to go through all the schooling and was still able to be successful. If schools did not put an emphasis on grades, then there would not be any motivation for students to stay on top of their work and do what they need to do. Bad grades can discourage students from thinking they are good enough to succeed, but good grades can motivate students to do even better. For his second secondary claim, the value of students' education depends on the teacher. He uses a quote to show that bias in a teacher's lessons comes from the detrimental impact of teacher bias. Lessons learned from the standpoint of African American mothers. All the information used in that article was between the years 1965 to 2002. The information is outdated, times have changed. It is also information from a mother's viewpoint and not from students. Students are the ones being taught by the teachers. There should be information from the students as to why teacher bias is not helpful with their education. Kevin said that with the increasing number of students in each class, teachers cannot concentrate on each student equally. A student's education does not depend solely on the teacher. If the student has questions or needs more help, they need to find the time to ask the teacher or find a tutor. A teacher does not have the time to focus on every student. Even with a smaller amount of students in a class, the teacher will not be able to concentrate on every single student. For his third secondary claim that America's public schools are counterproductive, Kevin brought up the budget cuts and how that affects schools' programs. That is not the fault of the K-12 school system, that is the fault of the government. Teachers fight the cutbacks. That shows that the teachers care for the students and their education. The government making budget cuts on the schools does not convey how the schools are being counterproductive. If anything, that shows that the government is being counterproductive. This information does not help Kevin's claim on K-12 schools not properly educating students. He also states that giving students a 3-month break in their studies causes students to forget everything they learned in the previous year. Time.com states that on average all students lose about a month of progress in math skills each summer. At the beginning of each year, teachers have reviews, and once students start working on those reviews, the memory of last year's lessons come back. Time.com also states that as long as the students are active during the summer and keep their brains working, the memory of the lessons is retained in the brain. But a student who does nothing, like sits around and watches television all summer, will lose the skills and information they learned the previous year. This goes to show that Kevin's claim that summer is not helpful is not entirely true. Depends on the student.
All right, the main and secondary claims are labeled pretty clearly. On the first point, you basically argue that there's a limited example there, that it was an unusual situation, that it's not really a measure of education as it is a skill, And then you make an assertion about how good grades could motivate students. I think you've got some general arguments there that are fine, but it seems like it's been a long time and there would be some stronger claims there, and I think you could use some better evidence on that particular point rather than just your assertion. On the second argument concerning the teacher's impact, you've got general presses on the advocate's source. That's okay, but once again, this notion that there is some bias against the students, that they are suffering as a consequence of expectations of teachers or something, it's pretty darn subjective here, and I don't think it would be hard to find some information that talks about all kinds of reforms that have been put into place or specialized programs or other sources of problems that these students have that don't have anything to do with the education system. On the K through 12 argument, I think you've got the right argument here, and that is basically, look, this is a financing issue. This is not an education issue, and it doesn't address the question of whether the schools have an impact. It addresses whether or not there's money on that particular point. Your last argument about the time in summer school being off, I did like the fact that you found some evidence to respond to that point. You have a tendency to look down the whole time you're speaking. You're doing a lot of reading, and you need to project a little bit more. So the delivery doesn't enhance the credibility of your argument, and I think you ought to be thinking about those things a little more. All right. Thank you.